delegate is Ms. Fernandes.
Script. I had to make mine shorter. It was too long. It was way longer than 5 minutes. And as I was practicing, I had to condense. But everything that I had submitted it's just less than what I submitted. So are we good to go? Or it's not going to be word for word, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not, okay. Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak about fiscal transparency and educational accountability. I'll start with my experience with the February 11th Audit Committee meeting. Despite a lack of agenda materials, the public was unable to ask questions. I learned that not only is the Audit Committee barred from questioning how funds are allocated, but the public is also entirely excluded from these discussions. Specific questions were redirected, and further inquiries into how funds were spent under categories like mental health or math achievement were met with unmeasurable examples with no success metrics tied to academic outcomes. The last time this board held a public budget consultation was in 2019. When asked why, we're told it created the misleading impression that public input mattered. If the board is proud of its spending, why hide it? Why must the very people who fund these initiatives through their labor and taxes also pay to file FOIs only to receive redacted documents and then pay again to challenge the censorship? In one case, I was quoted nearly $900 in order to obtain the amount being paid for the ongoing legal battles against a WRDSB teacher. The public does not agree on the malice decision to pursue legal action against teachers fulfilling their duty. Yet the board is spending exuberant amounts on Bay Street lawyers to attack our own community, staff, and fellow trustees, as seen with code of conduct claims, anti-SLAPP, and even letters sent from legal to parents in attempts to intimidate them to remove their Twitter posts. This is not honorable nor responsible governance. It is a reckless misuse of public funds and an abuse of power, and we want to know how much it's been costing us. It persists even as the Ministry of Education launches investigations reminding boards that their mandate is student achievement, not identity politics or self-enrichment disguised as public service. The most recent Sunshine List included 3,643 WRDSB employees. Academic outcomes continue to fall, literacy is down, violence is up, enrollment is plummeting, yet somehow it's acceptable for the staff propagating equity to be paid 3, 4, even more than 5 times the average Canadian's earnings. The board is redirecting significant funds towards costly school name changes based on unfounded claims of harm, while school buildings are literally falling apart, posing real risks to students and staff. Decisions parents had already advised the board against, only for the ministry again to have to step in and order a stop. We saw this again when our Parent Involvement Committee event was canceled, a low to no cost town hall with such high interest that more parents showed up for this canceled event than the board approved and advertised Rise Up event focused on raising children to be anti-racist activists, where only 2 to 3 parents attended. But it went ahead for nearly $4,000 because it served the board's narratives, not the people's needs. Parents have flagged the conduct of former Director of Education for years. $291,000 in his last year's salary alone. Initiatives such as Ask G1, Dream Ed, free menstrual products in boys' washrooms, and bloated DEI portfolio, and now he's gone. Not only with no accountability, but with no indication of whether we're also paying severance. And the trustees who supported this wasteful spending, while vilifying discerning parents, continue to sit at this table. I appreciate the difficulty of meeting diverse needs in one system. Yet, if public boards insist on doing things as they see fit while refusing democratic input, they must expect, and I hope that they would also support, options for students, allowing families to choose the space that meets their children's needs. That's true equity and diversity. That's liberty. Because currently we're forced to fund a system that we oppose while being blocked from seeing where the money goes and stonewalled from changing it. If a public board cannot be public with their funding, do we presume misappropriation? And at what point does it become theft? Will the WRDSB restore public consultation on the budget? Will it provide line-by-line breakdowns for all expenditures? And will it stop using public funds for ideological, self-promoting agendas and start investing in its mandate, our children's academic achievement? Again, if you and this system are here for our kids, we're here for you and this system. Otherwise, we have a duty to leave and insist that our funds follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandes. Trustees, are there any questions? Trustee Watson?
Thank you. You said that you had specific questions after the audit meeting and something about unmeasurable examples. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so I had several questions. I mean, there's many, so I think the two main ones that I've tried to mention here, but had to condense it quite a bit, was that there was an overarching figure of $6.43 million in savings, and so I was curious as to where that came from, and I was redirected to the document, like it's in an infograph, but it's also in the document, and so I was redirected to this document that, like, most parents probably don't even know exists, and that, let alone would be reading it. And here I am taking the time to read it, and then I have questions, and I'm redirected to this. And then specific questions on lined items, like, for instance, we know that a drag queen came in to teach math. And we're like, well, where does that fall under? Does that fall under well-being and mental health, or does that fall under our budget for math achievement? Like, where is the money coming from, and where do we have the money to spend on drag queens coming in to teach our kids? Like, I don't understand it, but I believe it really should be transparent, that parents ought to be informed of what they're spending their money on, and then get to decide if they want to keep on in their good conscience paying for it. I don't know if that answers, yeah.
Follow-up, Trustee Watson? Trustee Wasim?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just wondering if staff can provide some clarification for the trustees on a point that the delegate brought up about previously the budget consultation in 2019 was public and now it's no longer the case.
Director Miller?
Actually, I'll ask Superintendent Landry to speak to that process.
Sure. Through the chair, 2019, as the delegate said, was the last time we conducted a budget survey. Since then, we've gone through a strategic planning process, which involved wide consultation, which identified the priorities for the board. The purpose of a budget is to operationalize the strategic plan. The budget is not about coming up with necessarily new ideas that diverge from the strategic plan or the goals that have been set out. So we follow the strategic plan goals and priorities, and we try and operationalize that through the budget.
Follow-up, Trustee Wasim? Trustee Piakowski?
Yes, through you to the delegate. The delegate expressed concern about a speaker who came in to get students excited about math. Could you detail your specific objections to this speaker?
Is that a clarification, point of clarification on my delegation, or is that like, do you want to get into a debate with me?
Can you clarify, Trustee Piakowski, what is your question of
My question is what the delegate's objection was to the speaker.
I didn't have any objection.
Point of order.
Thank you. What is your point of order, Trustee Watson?
Thank you. It is just the question should be to the delegate of something that they've said, but not asking their opinion. And that's exactly what that is. He's asking her opinion instead of a question of clarification of what she has stated.
Thank you, Trustee Watson. Trustee Piakowski, do you want to rephrase your question?
I am asking the delegate to clarify what their objection was to the speaker.
Sure, I'll clarify. I'll clarify for you. I didn't have an objection specifically because honestly, my opinion doesn't matter. This is supposed to be a democracy and we need to know where our money is going. And if the majority of people want a drag queen teaching math to their kids, then that's what you'll get. And you'll get more of it. And those who do not will be working to pull all of our funding from this indoctrination center and move it somewhere else. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Ms. Fernandes. Trustee Weston?
Thank you. Through you to the delegate. Early in your delegation, and I may not have the full quote here, it says, you said you were told public input doesn't matter. Was that the full quote you received from staff?
No, the full quote, I don't have it here. It'd be in an email, so I can send that to you if you'd like. The part that I quoted was, it misled. Was it that? Well, let me find it, because I don't want to misspeak here.
I'm happy for you to forward that response to me, and
Sure.
I could ask, if I may ask the director.
Oh, sorry, misleading impression. Sorry, that was the direct quote. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I was wondering if I may ask of staff to clarify if they have recollection of that, what was said. Is that possible?
Director Miller?
Yeah, through the chair to trustees, I would have to see the email. I don't recollect that.
And I apologize too if it seemed that I was, because I understand that there are processes to things, like even with, Nick stating why it is the way it is. I get it. Everyone has their roles, and it's the audit committee's task for a specific, and it's not to take in questions at that time. I get it, but what I'm saying is, there isn't, even when we do have questions, where do we go if it isn't going to be at the treasurer of the board, the super of business services and the treasurer of the board, and we get redirected and we don't have the answers that we're looking for to be informed of where our money's going.
Follow-up?
Yes, just very quickly. Thank you. It was more the comment, public input doesn't matter, and I just wanted more context on that, but I'm happy to receive the email in the future because it just seemed like it was an incomplete
I get it.
comment.
I get it, and it's difficult to condense it in such a short amount. And really, I do stand by that statement. It's that I get that there's tasks that need to be done, and I think what he had intended, and I'll send it to you and we can discuss and he can clarify, but it was more of we're not going to ask for it to be like a discussion because we actually can't take your input at this time. And that's a problem to me in itself. Like, it doesn't really matter what our input is at those meetings, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions? Trustee Watson?
Thank you. I don't have a question, but we did used to have public meetings where we would go out with the budget, and we didn't get a lot of people who showed up. And so maybe if I could just ask that question about the public meetings we used to have as for budget, or I can wait until the budget shows up, and then we can discuss it there.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Watson. That's not related to the presentation, so I guess I would ask Director Miller. The delegate says she asked the question at was it an audit committee meeting?
We couldn't ask the questions at the audit committee. It was abruptly ended, and then so I followed up in an email.
You asked it of staff?
Afterwards. Yeah, I followed up.
So I'm wondering if Director Miller, if staff would be able to share the response that was given.
Thank you. And through the chair to trustees, I'll again ask Superintendent Landry to speak to that and provide a response specific to the audit committee, I believe.
Through the chair, specific to the audit committee. So the audit committee, the role of the audit committee is defined within regulation under the Education Act. It's pretty specific in terms of reporting, compliance, controls, and risk. The audit committee is not charged with passing the budget, with reviewing the budget. The audit committee is concerned with our financial reporting. Are our financials prepared in accordance with public sector accounting standards? How do we manage risk within the board? What are our internal controls like? What does the external auditor's audit plan look like? And what are the findings of the internal auditor, and how are management responding to that? That is, in essence, the mandate of the audit committee. So to engage in a discussion about budget wouldn't be appropriate for that committee, which also includes external members who are not trustees.
Yep. So, that
Thank you,
verifies it. Thank you.
Superintendent Landry. Trustees, are there any further questions? Trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, but I was going to move that the presentation be directed to staff for perhaps follow-up or response. I mean, I'd love to know where the, what budget line, some of the things that delegation raised as to where the money comes from to pay for the different speakers and so forth. I think more appropriate to send it to staff or response.
Thank you, Trustee Ramsey. I wonder if before it's referred to staff, if again the director could let us know whether those questions was that information given. Basically, I'm asking were the questions answered and do they need to be answered again?
So through the chair to trustees, the specific questions from the trustee around the report, what budget lines and things did, were certain things paid out of? I don't believe those have been answered specifically. The other part to that, though, is, and certainly this is something through a recent PPM around just various assemblies and other things that we're having at our school, that we now have 2 weeks prior to any guest speakers, which would come out of school funds as schools make decisions, what they feel is appropriate for their school community, and certainly follows procedures around that, and then would share with parents prior to who and what would be coming into the schools, and certainly at that point parents could make decisions if they wanted their children to be part of those assemblies or not.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fernandes.
Thank you.
See. Sorry, Trustee Ramsey is looking at me, so I've missed something. What have I missed?
I appreciate the response from Director Miller of this, but I'm still just wondering if perhaps as the motion moved to refer to staff for something a little bit more specific. Then.
Okay, seconded by, Trustee Esther. After. So do we have a seconder, Trustee Watson? All in favor? And that is carried. Opposed? Any abstentions? Is that carried? That is carried. Trustee Esther.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the delegate, did you you have raised that you had questions that you weren't able to ask? Did you ever send those questions directly to staff?
Yes.
And did you ever get follow-up from that?
Oh, yeah, no, I got a tremendous follow-up. It was basically that, like the redirection. It was redirection to a document, a pretty dense document that I was trying to explain earlier that most parents probably wouldn't even know exists, and then let alone actually read it. So I'm asking for more transparency so people know where their money is going. And even if they were to access the document, again, it's these lines that we don't know, like we don't know where the funding would be coming from, and we don't know how much is being spent, because a lot of things are lumped together in very general lines. So mental health, what is that? What exactly are we using our money for mental health? Math achievement, what are we doing? And then something that really blurs the line, like the drag queen who came in to teach math, where does that fall under? Are we taking away from our math initiatives, or are we taking away from our, where is it, and how we just want to know where the money's going so that we can make informed decisions as much as possible and advocate where we find it's necessary to advocate. Does that?
Understood. And so just for my confirmation, you did submit those questions.
Yes.
And you did get follow-up. Okay,
I got follow-up, yeah, but my questions weren't necessarily answered, which is why, yeah, they're being sent in, I guess. So thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come and share your concerns.
Thank you.
Fernandes. So, Director Miller.
So through the chair to trustees, tonight,